In the dead of night at Arlington, a tomb guard paces his 21 steps, boots echoing like a heartbeat against sacred stone. Sergeant Ethan Caldwell, rigid in his Navy uniform, looks like a statue to the tourists, snapping photos. But tonight, a challenge looms, one that'll test more than his discipline. A professor, armed with a PhD and a grudge, calls the tomb guard a pointless relic, mocking Ethan's duty in front of his own son. The classroom's about to become a battlefield, and Ethan's about to prove that honor isn't just in the steps he takes, it's in the fight he's ready to win. Before we dive into the story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that values like honor, courage, and sacrifice still matter, join us in keeping their legacy alive. The sun hadn't yet broken the horizon when Sergeant Ethan Caldwell stepped onto the polished marble of Arlington National Cemetery. His Navy Tomb Guard uniform was pressed to perfection. His kepi hat sat at a precise angle, and his sunglasses shielded eyes that had seen both war and peace. Each step echoed in the pre-dawn silence, a rhythmic tap against the sacred ground, where thousands of white headstones stood like silent sentinels. Ethan's gloved hands swung in measured arcs, his posture rigid yet fluid, embodying the discipline of a tomb guard. This was his duty, to honor the fallen at the tomb of the unknown soldier, a monument to sacrifice that demanded nothing less than perfection. As he paced his 21 steps, Ethan's mind drifted to his son, Noah, 14, and struggling to find his place in a world that often mocked what Ethan stood for. Noah had been distant lately, embarrassed by his dad's job, swayed by voices that called the tomb guard a relic of a bygone era. Ethan exhaled softly, his breath visible in the chilly air. He'd faced insurgents in Afghanistan, but nothing felt harder than watching his son pull away. Back home, the kitchen clock read 5:30 a.m. Ethan, now in civilian clothes, called upstairs. "Noah, time to get up. We've got that history program today." A groan drifted down, followed by sluggish footsteps. Noah appeared, hair tousled, wearing a hoodie and jeans, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Dad, do I have to go? Professor Thornton's just going to rant about how the military is a waste of time again." Ethan sat down his coffee mug, his hazel eyes meeting Noah's. "He's your teacher, Noah. You don't have to agree with him, but you've got to show up and think for yourself." Noah shrugged, picking at his cereal. "He says stuff like, the tomb guard's just a bunch of guys marching for tourists. It's embarrassing, Dad." The words stung, but Ethan kept his voice steady. "My job's about honoring the people who gave everything for this country. That's not embarrassing, it's a privilege." Noah looked away, unconvinced. Ethan checked his watch. "Come on, I'll drive you. And yeah, I'm wearing my uniform. Got duty right after." Noah's eyes widened. "You're not coming inside, are you?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, his silence answering the question. The drive to the Washington, D.C. Community Center was quiet, the city waking up around them. Ethan navigated the streets with the precision he brought to everything, his tomb guard uniform drawing glances from passers-by. Noah slouched in the passenger seat, staring out the window. "So this Professor Thornton," Ethan said, breaking the silence, "he's got a thing against the military, huh?" Noah nodded. "He says traditions like yours are outdated, that they glorify war. He told the class last week that tomb guards are just puppets in fancy costumes." Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel, but his voice stayed calm. "And what do you think, Noah?" "I don't know," Noah mumbled. "I mean, he's a professor, he's got a PhD, everyone listens to him." Ethan glanced at his son. "A degree doesn't mean someone's got all the answers. You've got to weigh both sides." Noah didn't respond, and Ethan let it go as they pulled into the community center's parking lot. The center was a modern building with glass windows and a sign advertising the Youth History Enrichment Program. Inside, the classroom buzzed with 30 middle schoolers, their voices echoing off the walls. Professor Daniel Thornton stood at the front, a tall man of 45 with salt and pepper hair and a tweed blazer that screamed academia. His wire-rimmed glasses glinted as he wrote on the whiteboard, "The Cost of Tradition." Ethan and Noah slipped in just as Thornton began. "Good morning, everyone," Thornton said, his voice carrying a practiced authority. Today, we're discussing how outdated traditions like certain military rituals drain resources from a society that needs innovation, not pageantry. He paused, noticing Ethan's uniform. Well, what do we have here? A living exhibit, perhaps. Sergeant, is it? Care to introduce yourself? Ethan stepped forward, his posture perfect. Sergeant Ethan Caldwell, Tomb Guard, Arlington National Cemetery. I'm just here to drop off my son, Noah. I apologize for interrupting. Thornton's smile was thin, his eyes gleaming with something like amusement. No interruption at all, Sergeant. In fact, your timing is perfect. We're just about to dissect the relevance of roles like yours. Please take a seat. Noah slid into a chair, his face burning red as classmates whispered. Ethan hesitated, then sat near the door, his kepi hat resting on his knee. Thornton leaned against his desk, arms crossed. Class, let's consider the Tomb Guard, a group of soldiers who march back and forth day and night for what? To guard a symbolic grave? To entertain tourists? It's a beautiful spectacle, sure, but utterly impractical in a world that values progress over nostalgia. Ethan's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed firm. Thornton continued, his tone dripping with condescension. These traditions perpetuate a myth of military glory, distracting us from the real costs of war. Wouldn't you agree, Sergeant, that your time could be better spent on something productive? Ethan spoke evenly, his voice cutting through the room. With respect, Professor, the Tomb Guard honors the soldiers who gave their lives, including those whose names we'll never know. That's not a myth, it's a debt we owe. Thornton waved a hand dismissively. Charming, but let's be honest, standing motionless for hours doesn't exactly require intellectual rigor, does it? It's more about following orders and a turning off thinking. The class grew quiet, sensing the tension. Noah sank lower in his seat, mortified. Thornton seized the moment, his voice sharpening. Since you're here, Sergeant, why don't we make this educational? I've developed a cognitive assessment for my research, logic puzzles, pattern recognition, creative problem solving. Care to demonstrate the intellectual demands of your profession? Ethan glanced at Noah, seeing the fear in his son's eyes. He knew Thornton was baiting him, but he also saw a chance to show Noah what he stood for. I've got duty soon, Professor, but I can spare a few minutes if it'll help your students learn. Thornton's eyebrows rose, clearly surprised. Excellent! Let's see what a military mind can do with a real challenge. He passed out sheets of paper, each filled with complex puzzles. Students, you can try these yourselves, but I want you to observe our guest's approach. Notice how hierarchical training might limit creative thinking. Ethan took a sheet with gloved hands steady. He picked up a pencil and began, his focus absolute, as if he were back in Afghanistan scanning for threats. The room fell silent, save for the scratch of pencils. Thornton paced, occasionally glancing over Ethan's shoulder, his confidence unshaken. Interesting choice, he murmured after a few minutes. Most would have tackled that pattern differently. Ethan didn't respond, his pencil moving with the same precision he used in his ceremonial steps. Noah watched, his anxiety mounting. He'd seen his dad train for hours, memorize every detail of his uniform, but this was different. Thornton's voice broke the silence. Notice how our guest works sequentially, step by step, very linear, typical of military training where orders trump innovation. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Thornton's smugness began to falter as Ethan's pencil kept moving, solving problems that stumped even the brightest students.